Standing behind me, I have some of Auckland's bus drivers. These are some of the hardest working people in our city, the men and women who keep Auckland and other towns and cities around our country moving. And I genuinely consider some of these people to be some of our heroes of the past 2.5 years as we have dealt with the challenges of COVID and found ways of trying to keep going. And so the first acknowledgement and thanks I have this morning is to all of our bus drivers, those here today, and the thousands of bus drivers around the country who do such important work for all of us. Can I also acknowledge representatives who are here today from bus operators, from unions, from Auckland Transport and from Waka Kotahi. It's good to have all of you here. Despite that enormously important work that our bus drivers do, over the past decade under the National Party's public transport operating model, our bus drivers has faced a race to the bottom with their pay and conditions under a contracting system which has meant that bus companies have been forced into a situation of competing on the lowest cost contracts to be able to get business across the country. It has been a classic case of the race to the bottom with pay and conditions that our government has spoken of, and is one of the reasons that we are setting up fair pay agreements. And the end result of that after 10 years has been a systematic shortage of drivers here in Auckland and right around the country, impacting commuters, resulting in cancelled services and not helping us in our journey to decarbonise our transport system. Our government is totally committed to making public transport more affordable, more efficient, easier and more attractive for Kiwis to use. But we will not be able to achieve those objectives without enough bus drivers to get those services going in the towns and cities of Aotearoa. We have over the last year seen bus operators, unions and councils work together to improve conditions, and I thank and acknowledge them for that. But it is clear that there is more for us to do. And so I'm very pleased and proud to announce today that following discussions between public transport authorities, mainly our councils, operators and unions, that $61 million that the government allocated in Budget 2022 will now be used to support the sector to standardise minimum base pay rates towards a target rate as agreed by all of the people behind me right across our country. The intention is to work towards a base rate of $30 per hour for urban services and $28 per hour for regional services. Public transport authorities and operators will be able to access a share of funding if they contribute to wage increases themselves and continue to apply indexation to wage rates in the future. So in other words, the government is putting money on the table from us to make sure that we lift pay and conditions, but as a part of that we're also requiring that operators and councils also come to the party. This will help the industry transition to standard terms and conditions for bus drivers, which can currently vary significantly across the country and even between operators within individual cities. In recognition of different pay and conditions currently across the system, public transport authorities will also have the option of providing funding to operators according to market share to offer a penal rate for work after 9 p.m. of 1.2 time or a $30 shift allowance. This will help to deliver a level of equality between different operators and different regions. Today's funding announcement will not but will be an important step towards improving pay and conditions and getting that industry standard in place across the country. The improved driver terms and conditions that I'm announcing today will be supported by the Sustainable Public Transport Framework, which I announced in August, and replaces the public transport operating model put in place by National that has done so much damage to driver pay and conditions. The Sustainable Public Transport Framework also incentivises mode shift and bus sector decarbonisation. And I really want to emphasise at this point that there is no government in recent history which has backed public transport more than this government. Between today's announcement of lifting pay and conditions, the changes to the sustainable public transport model, our investment in new infrastructure, including the extensions to the Northern busway that I've come in on today, the Eastern busway which we're funding, infrastructure improvements around the country, the national ticketing solution that I announced last week, our $40 million investment into bus sector decarbonisation, and our policy changes such as reshaping streets, which will make it easier for councils to put in bus lanes. We are committed to making public transport and bus services better. but making sure that our bus drivers are paid a fair rate and see an attractive future in this sector is absolutely critical to making that work. We recognise the vital role that public transport has in our everyday lives and our economic and environmental future. Waka Kotahi will now begin work with public transport authorities, operators and unions to support the implementation of this deal across different regions in New Zealand. And I will be pressing them all for implementation that is as fast as possible to get this benefit of government investment to our bus drivers who deserve it. We are committed to supporting public transport, and I'm excited to see great sector collaboration that's been instrumental in delivering the standard terms and conditions that I've announced today. We will continue to work with the sector on other meaningful solutions to support public transport and a good future for our drivers who do such a great job. I'll finish off by saying what I always say when I hop off the bus: thanks, driver. Thank you all. Thank you.